Today, I want to talk about teaching and tests. Many people believe that teachers should be evaluated based on test scores only. Test scores are important. Education is vital. Having excellent teachers is vital. But test scores are only one part of how well a teacher does. And as you listen to this conversation, there are different ways to test a student, and you can test the same topic, the same subject, different ways and get different results. When people tell me that teachers should only be evaluated by how well their students do, I ask them, were you a straight A student in school? Most students weren't. I asked them about a subject they didn't do well in, and I asked them why they didn't do well. And they always say, oh, I had a bad teacher. And then I ask them, well, what about the students in that class that did do well, that got a B, that got an A? Oh, they were the teacher's pet. And I'm thinking, teacher's pet? Well, maybe they were the good student and you were the bad student. Because if a teacher has students that do well in the class and some that don't do well in the class, still a pretty good teacher. Now, of course, everybody is good at certain subjects. Everybody is bad at certain subjects. Science was not my forte. I was not good in science. I was good in the arts. I was good in writing. Um, I was good in explaining things. I was more better in the social type subjects as opposed to the science subjects. Now, I'm not saying that it's never the teacher's fault. As in any profession, there are good teachers and there are bad teachers. And I will be the first one, I'm raising my hand, the first one to say if you're a bad teacher, either take some time and learn how to be a better teacher, or maybe teaching is not the profession for you. But tests are not only the way to evaluate students. I have a part time job where I teach adults, immigrants, English. Some of them love tests, some of them hate tests. And interestingly, some of the students that hate tests actually do better than the students that love tests. So it's not just a case of some students know how to take a test, which, if you do, if you can memorize and you understand how to take a test, yeah, generally you do better. But it's not all of the reason why. It's not the only reason why. Most important thing that I learned in teaching is the type of test can determine how well a student will do. And you can test the student on the same topic, the same subject. And if you give them two different types of tests, they can get two different grades. Sometimes a big difference in those grades. Let me give you an example. One of the grammar topics I teach students is the simple present tense and the present continuous tense. I explain to them when you use that tense And when you use the other tense, how you form the tense, I give them examples of sentences using that tense, and then I have the students write and give me examples. So the simple present tense describes things that you do every day or a regular basis. For example, I drink coffee every morning. Simple present tense. I teach 4 days a week. Simple present tense. The first one, I drink coffee every morning, is the simple present because I'm describing something that I do daily. I teach 4 days a week. That is also the simple present tense, but I'm describing something that I do on a regular basis. Simple, the present continuous tense describes something that is happening right now in the moment. I am talking to you. You are listening to me. I explain the differences, how you form them. Now, when I give a student a test, and tests are usually multiple choice, as is the standardized test that we use, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, most students will do well on the, um, what is it? Excuse me. They will do well on the multiple choice test because they can recognize the forms. They can see, oh, present continuous, verb to be, verb, ing. So they do okay with that. But that's only one part of the test. That's sort of like a structured environment. Can you identify? I am more interested in, can you use it? Can you apply your learning to a real world situation? So I will ask the students, take a few minutes and think about something, and I want you to tell me that using the simple present tense and the present continuous. If you need to, you can write it out first and then read it to me. That's when students have difficulty. They've identified simple present tense, they've identified the present continuous tense, but they can't apply it. The same thing happens. I will have a different grammar book, and they will read a few paragraphs, a passage, and in that story, the author is using both the simple present tense and the present continuous tense. And I will ask them, why does the author use the simple present tense here? Why does the author use the present continuous tense here? And remember, I've already told them how you use each tense. They usually get stumped, and so I give them hints. Is this action that the author is describing, is it happening in the moment? For example, the employees are eating lunch. If that's the case, it's the present continuous tense. They'll see a sentence, for example, in the story, every day I have lunch at 12 p.m. Again, what tense is that? And I ask them, is the action happening now? Or is this something that the employees are doing every day? And I have them read the sentence. The employees, I eat lunch every day at 12 p.m. So look for a key word. When do they have lunch at 12 p.m.? every day. Every day. Which tense do you use for something that you do every day? See, so that's a different test. They might have gotten the multiple choice um, questions. They may have answered them all correctly. Now, though, can they identify them? And good teaching and good learning involves being able to do both. So different types of tests on the same topic can give you different results. So how do I test? I use a standardized test. And when I started teaching, the school's director said, you can use the standardized test or you can create your own test as long as it covers all of what is in a chapter. Well, I had never used this book before, and I said, well, I should at least use the standardized test a few times to see if it's a good test or not. And I saw that the test reflected what was in the book. And I said, this is a fair test. And so I use that test. Now, how do I evaluate my students? It's a little bit different. Test score is one thing, evaluation is different. For some students, it could simply be they do very well on the test and that they can apply what they learn in real life situations. For example, they can write or tell me a story that uses both the simple present tense and the present continuous tense. They can also look at something that is written and they can tell me why the author used the simple present tense and the present continuous tense. So that is one example. And of course, this type of evaluation is done in all grammar points, all verb tenses, all types of grammar. It's the difference between understanding something, identifying something, and applying something. So, for some students, I'll say they do very well in the test, but they can't apply what they learned. And sometimes that can determine if the student moves to the next level. Now, each level takes about a year, and so they're taking a variety of tests. So certainly and hopefully they show improvement. But sometimes they can do very well when it comes to taking a test, but they can't apply it. So they may not advance to the next level. Well, some people will say, is that fair? And yes, it's fair. Let's use an analogy, a music analogy. You may be very good at reading music. You know all of the notes. You know the rhythm. You know the chord symbols. And I say, great, play this song, whether it's guitar, whether it's piano. If you can't play it, well, you can't apply what you know. You know in theory, but you can't actually do it. So, would it be fair for that student to move to the next level where their playing level is very low compared to the other students that can play better? No, it's not fair to the student that's in that level, and it's not fair to the other students in that class. So, what is the takeaway from the test? It is very simple. How you test students plays a major role on their grade and how well they perform. Use a variety of different tests to evaluate a student. And for all of the parents, remember back when you were a student, if you were not good in math, if you were not good in science, like me, if you were not good in English or literature, whatever, think about that with your student. In some cases, it's like, we're just not good at learning everything. And so it's just one of those things. But also, think about the other reasons. Sometimes you didn't do well because you didn't find the class interesting. You decided, well, I'm going to study, I'm going to become a nurse, I want to become a doctor, uh, I want to become a mechanic, whatever. What does history have to do with my career? So, in the end, it's really a collaboration on how well students do. It's the teachers, it's the students, and it's the parents. So, that is the end of this short, well, maybe it's a little longer than I planned, um, video conversation, and I look forward to recording again. Take care. Bye.